fair tax, which, of course, doesn't hurt the people who are up to the poverty level, but it's fair in terms of everyone having to pay federal sales tax on new products. And I'm wondering, what is your feeling on that, eliminating IRS?
Our tax code needs major modification. First of all, it's too complex. Everybody agree? How many do your taxes by yourself? I mean, every time if I try to on TurboTax, I'd be like, don't mess this up, you know. So it's too complex for individuals. It's definitely too complex for businesses. And if you look at the impact on businesses, small businesses are the ones that are really taking the hit because they don't have the means to hire all the experts to figure out how to use all the loopholes in order to, gain the advantage. So they actually spend more time and resources trying to comply with the tax code, but they're actually not benefiting from all the little loopholes that the bigger businesses, benefit from, and small businesses, again, is the engine of growth. The amount of time we spend just complying with the tax code is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it's worth millions of jobs if we translate it into man hours and jobs. So I am definitely for, we have got to simplify the tax code, and philosophically, I believe we need to keep taxes as low as possible. And I'm not going to throw out a number because this is complex, and you got to do some study to make sure you get that right number. But the number needs to be low enough so that the money in your pocket as individuals and in the pockets of businesses is actually continuing to have growth in the economy, which then brings in more revenue. So it needs to be low enough, that it's bringing in the right amount of revenue, because as soon as you get over that threshold where you think, oh, it's a really cheap way to get more revenue is to raise taxes, it just isn't. That may be a short-term gain, but in the end, if you study it, what that does is it changes behavior, and then it then has people and businesses not be able to invest, which then impacts the growth. So growth actually goes down as you try and do that cheap fix to get the tax refund. I've looked at the fair tax plan. I personally don't think that's the way we need to go right now, and I think that's politically a threshold that would be very difficult to get over right now. I think it's more sort of pragmatic to, and there's different studies out there as to who that hits more. Does it hit the middle class more, or does it hit others more? And so I promise, hey, I'm going to study and analyze and make sure before I get behind someone that there's something or some effort that it's well understood and it's actually the right thing. That would be a pretty significant overhaul if we do something like that. I think right now, for the first time, we do have the political will and momentum, and I think in the next Congress we can make some major changes to the tax code, and then have it, because if you eliminate and simplify loopholes, you then can shrink the IRS, and then we can shrink the amount of time and effort we're spending to comply with it. But I don't think that's a feasible solution right now. Not at this time. Yes, sir.
What is your name?
Yeah. Okay, so I get asked about term limits all the time, and I may be speaking in naivete, but my view is this. The Constitution is pretty clear that every 2 years, people get to have a term limit. Every 2 years you get to fire 435 members of the House. And every 6 years you get to fire your senator. And it would be my desire, because we do have, I think, a lot of people who either don't vote or they're voting without really spending time engaging and understanding kind of what the dynamics are, and so they're maybe influenced by a message of whoever has the most money, which often is the incumbent, and so that's the benefit there. That my desire would be that the American people would be awakened, to be engaged, and would actually be throwing people out and need to be thrown out. And we're seeing that happen even in this cycle. I mean, you've got incumbents that are losing in their primaries. We think they normally have the money advantage within the party, and they're not. So I think our design is to, to just stick with the Constitution and have the people engaged to throw people out of office. Now, you may call me naive, and talk to me after I'm in office for a year and I, realize that, maybe there's different dynamics going on there. All I can say to you is that I'm here to apply to a job for 2 years. And after 2 years, I get to decide whether I want to reapply. And you get to decide whether you want to rehire me, because it could go either way. I mean, I could walk away like, wow, I don't want to do that again. I mean, I'm just kidding. But, so it's every 2 years you have to refine. And that's what I would hope that people of CD2, how they would look at it very freshly when it comes to, nominating and electing their official. I am for repealing Obamacare, and we need to, however, replace it with thoughtful solutions that are not all at the federal level to bring the cost of health care down. Because if we just talk about, let's repeal Obamacare and then everybody claps and we feel good, health care in America is going to bankrupt us if we do nothing. If we kind of go back to where we were, it's going to bankrupt people, it's going to bankrupt our country. We're paying 50% more than any other nation per person for health care, and we're not healthier for it. So there's things that need to change. I have been spending a lot of time meeting with healthcare professionals because this is complex. So I'm talking to doctors, and I'm talking to hospital administrators, and I'm talking to anyone who will talk to me about what do you think is the replace piece. It's not just repeal, it's replace. What are the types of things that will bring the cost of health care down? I think they include anything that increases choice and competition. So buying insurance across state lines, giving people more choice, allowing them to have portability of their insurance, so it's not stuck with your employer, but actually you can sort of move from job to job. You don't have that risk that I'm going to lose my health insurance and then how that works out. That I think helps increase competition. Incentivizing preventive care so that we're actually healthier as opposed to doctors being paid fee for service for everything, so they only get paid when they do something to you or they diagnose you with something or they give you a pill. You're not necessarily healthier from that, so how we can, but this is not an easy solution, right? How do we get to where incentivizing preventive care? Some of this is federal, some of this is state, and some of this is sort of within the community and the private. So we got to work together to figure out how to get us on that trajectory. It is not a government-run program. I mean, I've been in the government, even in the Department of Defense. Whenever you're in the government, there's no innovation, there's no incentive for not wasting, and that is just not the way we need to go. So I'm for repeal, but I'm also for sensible solutions to it.
Martha, wait a minute.
Oh, sorry. All right, I've
Just
lost
a quick comment, making the fact that you'll be our presumptive nominee, and how do you think you best address your opponent should be in the general election?
Thank you. Yeah, the question was, on the assumption that I'm a presumptive Republican nominee, how do we plan to beat our opponent in the general election? And again, the democratic process needs to
Sally,
work.
can I interrupt you for a second?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I just thought we ought to give a round of applause for the person from the Democratic Party who is taping this today, audio and visual, and doing a heck of a job. Is it Cortland? Is that your name? Give him a round of applause for being here.
Thanks for pointing that out.
Unlike the Democrats, we allow everybody to participate.
Well, the democratic process is important, and I'm glad that they're tracking me everywhere I go. It's part of democracy and freedom, so I look forward to that. And I'm not saying anything that I wouldn't, want to be, said anywhere else. So, the people of Southern Arizona decided that Ron Barber was the right person to serve out Gabby Gifford's term. There's a lot of dynamics in that special election. We've been through a lot in this community, and even in the last few days, we've been reminded of the wounds of the things that we went through last January 8th. And so the June election was about serving out Gabby Gifford's term. And the people of Southern Arizona decided that Ron Barber, who served with her, who was also injured in this terrible shooting, was the choice to serve out her term, as opposed to Jesse Kelly, her previous opponent, which put him in a very difficult position, I think, even as our nominee. That's what the June election was about. The November election is about the future. Who do the people of Southern Arizona want to represent them for the future? And I believe I offer the right profile and background, with the right education and experience, proven leadership, proven moral courage, service to my nation. There's a very strong, obviously, veterans community here. There's very strong concern about protection of our military bases, Davis Mountain, and even the 162nd at the Air National Guard. I mean, I can personally personally argue for those based on being a squadron commander and a senior leader in the military about how to make sure we protect and defend our bases and the economic impact, the impact they have to national security and veterans' rights.